Munster produced their best performance of the season so far in front of a record crowd. My name is Mark, let's talk rugby. Let's take a quick look at the squads for both sides from last night. So first up, Munster, starting from fullback, we have Haley, Daly, Frisk, Rory, Scannell, Zebo, Healy, Patterson. Then into the forwards, Wycherley, Barron, Salanoa, Adogbo, MacDonald, O'Donoghue, Hodgnet, Coombs. On the bench, we had Niall, Scannell, O'Connor, Knox, Hurley, Kendall, Cronin, Campbell, and Fekitoa. For the South Africa 15, in the pack, we had Nchunu, Dweba, Dutoy, Jenkins, Norkia, Buthelezi, Lowe, and Jean-Luc Dupree. In the backs, then we had Yanchis, Goosen, Zass, Hendricks, Van Wyk, Hartzenberg, and Fassi. And on the bench, we had Venter, Matanzima, Sandy, Dan Dupree, Norsha, Williams, Nohamba, and Lombard. So the conditions for this game, not ideal. There was high winds, lots of rain as well. But, for this time of year in Ireland, and especially the likes of Cork, it's pretty standard. What wasn't standard, though, was that the game was played in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. So if you're not familiar with GAA in Ireland, which is our main sporting body here, it's for Gaelic games. Generally, most Gaelic grounds do not allow foreign sports to be played in them, and that includes the likes of soccer or rugby. So there has to be a special vote for that to happen, and Páirc Uí Chaoimh allowed that to happen. We did have a game a few years ago when the Aviva Lansdowne Road was turning into the Aviva, and we played England and another game as well in Croke Park, and that was a fantastic atmosphere and fantastic occasion as well. And this one was up there too. So it's a record attendance for a rugby game in Munster of 41,400. And there's already, talk about maybe Munster having, if they get to maybe European semi-final or something, having it there rather than having to come up to Dublin to the Aviva instead. So that would be pretty nice to see. And it also, helps with the whole thing of, with Munster Rugby, you have the Thomond Park is in Limerick, but then you have a big Munster contingent in Cork as well, and that's where Páirc Uí Chaoimh is. So that would be kind of interesting to see that. The atmosphere, as I said, was electric, and you could just feel that it was going to be a special night for that one. And Munster, they just come straight out of the blocks. So they're on the attack from the start. There's a drive into the 22. They spread the ball wide to Daly. He goes over in the right-hand corner. It's converted by Healy. Healy's kicking from out wide for his conversions was, like, in those conditions, was amazing. He's had criticism before that in big games his kicking can let him down, but not in this game. Munster, then, they're looking good, but there is a mistake from Haley at fullback. It was basically like a long punt upfield, and he goes to try and catch it close to his own line. He juggles with the ball a bit and spills it backwards over the line, and then under pressure he has to dot it down, which gives us a 5-meter scrum to South Africa. That's kind of in the left-hand corner. They get the ball out, they spread it wide onto the right wing, and then Fazzi is able to go over in the corner there. That's converted to tie us up at 7-all. In the first kind of 15 minutes or so, South Africa, they're winning scrub penalties against Munster. They're being very physical and very aggressive, but compared to the way Munster have been for most of the URC season, they're actually standing up pretty well. On about 23 minutes, Munster then, they get themselves a penalty. They kick into the 22. They have a couple of advantages for offside. Healy, under one of the advantages, he tries a crossfield kick out to Zebo on the left wing, but he can't gather it. So we're back for the penalty. Munster decide not to take the points. They go for the corner. South Africa get up and compete. And Norkia, he's able to get in and nick the line out. But it's not really a great clearing kick, and Munster are able to come back then from another line out. Again, they're playing with advantage because of a no arms tackle. They move the ball and it's intercepted by Zas. He could have been away, but as I said, we're playing advantage. Munster again, they go for the corner on this one. This time it's to McDonald at the tail. It's kind of a very brave throw after, South Africa have been able to get up and compete against them for the last couple of throws. But they get it to him. They're able to suck in some defenders. They spread the ball then out to the wing. There's a lovely pass from Healy out to Zebo on the left, and Zebo's in plenty of space. He's able to go in pretty much unopposed. It still is kind of a tight kick for Healy, but he nails it again and makes it 14-7. There's about 10 minutes of the half to go. At that point, there's been good aggression on defence and line speed from both teams. We've seen South Africa a little bit trying to move the ball, but mostly it is kind of one-out runners and stuff like that. But they're showing at least a little bit of ambition. But then in the second half, we see them just reverting to type and sticking with that kind of one-out runners, trying to just run through and over Munster. South African line-out is looking pretty good and pretty accurate. Jenkins has been secure ball for them. He hasn't been playing as well as we've seen them for Leinster. Nortje has been really good in the line as well. And Dweba's throws have been, as I said, fairly accurate. We do then have a big hit from Herzenberg on Zebo, but Munster are able to get in there and they retain the ball. They then find some space out on the left, and O'Donoghue puts in a nice burst, but he's gone in right behind the South African cover, or the line, and there is a bit of cover there, but all he needs to do is to give the pass, but he delays it. The pass is forward because he's got now South Africans covering back in the passing channel, so we can't get it there. If you had given it a couple of seconds earlier, it looked like it was, a stroll-in try, but he wasn't able to do that. Munster then get a penalty from that scrum for South Africa collapsing. Kind of the beginning of Munster turning things around in the scrum, because up to then, the South Africans were definitely on top there. They decide then to go to the corner with 3 minutes of the half left. O'Donoghue calls the line to himself. It's secured. They drive the maul and they're making some progress. Then the centres come in to help as well. They drive over. Barron at the back there is try scorer. Healy absolutely drills the conversion over the bar to make it 21-7. Then on the restart, South Africa get themselves a penalty. Haley basically went up, he knocks it on, and a Munster player picks the ball from an offside position. They decide then to kick to the corner themselves. Nortje wins the line out. Munster collapse the maul. They get another penalty to go to the corner again. There's another penalty then for contact in the air. They go again to the corner, but this time Munster, they're able to disrupt the maul. The ball comes out and Jantjies doesn't notice it's come out. He doesn't know where it is. Munster get to the ball. They kind of kick it, I think, once or twice and hoof off the field, but it ends up going into touch. There was a bit of a break on, but there was no real control from the Munster in the breakout there. So that's then half time. Munster are probably a little bit lucky not to get a yellow card at that stage, I would say, for the amount of infringements that they had close to their own line. In the first half, South Africa, they've looked strong in their set piece, apart from kind of that end phase where Munster were getting penalties in the scrum, but the line out looks very solid. Munster's maul defence has been good as well, though they're not really getting much go forward from that. As I said, there were periods kind of earlier in the half and kind of in the middle of the half where the South Africans were trying to move the ball and they were finding some space, but they didn't really build on that then in the second half. They kind of, as I said, went more back to trying to be forward dominated and not really giving the backs as much ball as they had in the first half. Into the second half then, we have Munster on attack. They they have a ruck a bit outside the 22, and it's right beside the left-hand touchline. And they said on commentary that it was Patterson that kicked it through, but I thought watching it was maybe Daly. But somebody kicks it through anyway, and there's a race to get to the ball. And there's one Munster player against two covering South Africans. And the Munster player, I think it was Daly, had to kind of like use the conditions, slide along the ground to collect the ball. He gets there first. He's not far from the try line, but because he has to slide to secure it, it means that he couldn't make any more ground. Munster do get in though, and they recycle, moving from the left end over to right. Healy puts a nice little kick in behind, and Haley is the first one there to the ball. The referee said that he grounded it, but it's lucky that the game wasn't any tighter than this, because this might have been a controversial moment. I'm not sure whether he actually grounded it or not, and there wasn't much at least in terms of the replays and stuff. We didn't see much scrutiny of the fact whether he grounded, but try is awarded to Munster. Healy then converts, and they're out to 28-7 at that point. Williams then comes on to replace Yanchis, the scrum half for the South Africans. In terms of the performance of these two, like, Williams was a step above. He had a nice threat about him in terms of making breaks himself, and he was giving crisper passes as well. We then have Nortia off for Dupree at that point as well, and Munster are on the attack. Jenkins gets pinged for being off his feet. Healy then takes the penalty, but he misses touch. But then Goosens saves his blushes because his clearing kick is pretty poor. And Goosens overall, he wasn't really great. I have to say a 10 for South Africa. Munster go for the line out. South Africans again getting in to be able to disrupt. They did really well at disrupting the line out, I have to say. Williams goes from there. He's got a nice snipe from him, but then at the end of it, there's a poor pass, leads to a knock-on. Another scrum penalty then to Munster for South Africa hinging. And at this point, they've really turned around the interpretation of in the referee's mind of what's going on in the scrum, that they seem to be on top. At that point, Dweber then, he's talking to the referee, and he pointed something out. I don't know what it was, but he pointed something out to the referee about something that he felt was going on in the scrum. And I think what it was in that one, when you look at the replay, Munster got the penalty, but the Munster hooker went down on his knees before whatever happened that the referee awarded the penalty for. And I think that's what he was talking to him about. And it almost certainly should have been a penalty to South Africa in the scrum rather than Munster. But then that's actually Dweber's last action in the game. He's pulled off for Venter. I thought he had a pretty decent game. One of it, kind of maybe a handful of South Africans that stood out in mostly a subpar performance. Munster then, they kick the penalty. South Africa again steal the Munster line out, and they're able to force a penalty. They have a little bit of momentum. They burst into the Munster 22. Venter is on at this point. He's getting some go forward for them. And Hendricks puts on a beautiful step on Zebo, a couple of other defenders as well, to get a little bit more ground for them. Munster finally able to halt them, but we come back because they were offside. South Africa decide to go for the scrum, and South Africa at that point, they're talking to the referee about possible yellow card for Munster. The referee tells them that he has put Munster on a warning for some of their infringements, but because they've now called for the scrum, if they get a penalty for the scrum, that won't be included in potential yellow card for the foul play. Munster takes Zebo off at that point for young Campbell, who did pretty well when he came on. Munster then concede penalty at the scrum as well for elbows on the ground, and the scrum is right under the post. At that point then, the referee tells them that for everything including the scrum, they're on a warning for a yellow card. South Africans then, they move the ball wide to Hartzenberg. He goes over in the corner. TMO does a bit of a check, and confirms that there was a foot and touch. Campbell with a really nice covering tackle. And that was pretty much his first involvement since coming on for Zebo. Both teams then bring on some more substitutes. So we've got entire new front rows on both sides of the scrum. Munster, they're able to clear from the line out just outside their 22, but they're under a bit of pressure. They're not really getting away from their own line. South Africa are able to come back with those kind of one-out runners, pick and goes, to within about 5 meters of the line. They then go at the line and the referee calls short. And then when he checks it just later, the ball is on the line. So we have to have a TMO check. They check it and they realize that it was short, but players coming behind them kind of pushed them over onto the line. So it wasn't a try, but it wasn't, he wasn't going to get penalized for kind of a double movement type thing. South Africa go for a 5-meter scrum, and the scrum basically goes through 180 degrees, and O'Connor is given a yellow for whipping the scrum. He's just on in the front row for Munster, but he gets the yellow there. So Munster 10 minutes or 14. Straight away then, South Africa, they go for another scrum. It's a really good scrum. They drive basically through the Munster scrum, and Norse, he gets the ball down on the line for a try. That's converted then for 20-14 to Munster, and we're just into the final quarter, about maybe 17-18 minutes to go. From the restart then, South Africa knock on, Munster get a free from the scrum. Scannell gives a lovely ball over the top to Haley. They kick it on over the line, but South Africa are able to get there first and dot it down. Now, Munster, they're able to get away from their own line and they have a bit of territory for a while. They get a penalty for South Africans not rolling away, kicked that to the corner, but Scannell overthrows and South Africa are able to clear. At this point then, I felt as well that Munster, they're looking a bit tired, and if South Africa could get a try in this period, maybe we're going to be in for a tight finish to this one. We get a penalty to Munster for not releasing on the ground. Munster then go for another driving line out, and they make a bit of progress, but they kind of splinter a bit, and Norse gets in and he turns over the ball for South Africa. Another kind of bright light for them, I felt, in the pack. South Africa then, they win kind of a series of penalties and they work their way upfield. But by the time that they're within kind of striking distance, Munster are back to 15 again. And at this point then, South Africa have kind of abandoned any kind of real ambition in terms of trying to spread the ball wide. And it is really just one out runners that they're going with. And, it's effective up to a point, but then once it kind of gets close to the line, Munster dig in and they're not really getting any further than that. We have a scrum then, Munster win the penalty, and it's on a South African feed, just in front of their posts. And I felt that was probably the point where in Munster's minds that they'd won the game. There was big cheer from the players, and it seemed to give them a big lift and just a little bit more energy to see out the rest of the game. We do get another penalty from the line out to Munster, Dupree kind of interfering with MacDonald at the line out. We then have a bit of a scuffle as well. South Africa kind of showing a bit of frustration at that point, and the Munster crowd are loving it. Munster then managed to run down the clock. You can hear the fields of Athenry ringing out around the stadium. And final score then was Munster 28, South Africa 15-14. This game is going to go down in the history of Munster rugby as another one there up alongside wins against the All Blacks. And it's one I've already heard people talking about that. You're going to have people claiming that they're there. That is going to be way over the capacity of the stadium in a few years' time. Everybody connected with Munster or connected with Ireland will claim that they were there on the night for that one. So it's one of those ones. I do have to say, big thank you to South Africa for bringing a team and arranging the game as well. Because as I said, this is one that's going to live long in the memory. And it's great now to see that touring sides are willing to do stuff like this. It's something really in the professional game that we've missed. That kind of connection with the more regular fans, I would say, not the type that can afford or that can get given corporate, free tickets to the big games, the big tests in the Aviva. To see stuff like this happening is great, and I hope we're going to see more of it in rugby to come. So big thank you to the South Africans for being willing to do that. And in terms of the performances from Munster, everybody had a great game. I thought young Odogbo was immense in the pack. Like, the guy's only 19. And, I think it's just a matter of time before we're going to be seeing him turning out regularly in the Green of Ireland. We then had O'Donoghue was immense as well. I felt that Coombs, I think, had a point to prove because he was very poor against the All Blacks 15, and he was released from the Ireland camp. I would have expected him maybe to line out against Fiji this weekend, but he got released from the Ireland camp. I think he had a point to prove, and you could see that in his play. He was really good. I felt that the halfback partnership as well of Patterson and Healy went very well. It's good to see Zebo getting a little bit of fitness back and being a threat out on the wing as well. I thought both wingers played well, and almost across the board, like there were some really big performances for Munster. Shout out as well to Patterson for his post-match interview. The amount of F-bombs he dropped in the interview was just amazing. It was great to see. From the South African side of things, I thought that Nortje, when he was on, was really good in the second row. Williams, when he came on, definitely gave them a bit of a lift and a bit more threat as well from scrum half. Nortje, I thought, was excellent as well. He got a few turnovers. I felt that Jenkins, we didn't see what he's been delivering for Leinster. He wasn't so good for this South Africa select team. Dweba was, I'd say, impressive at hooker, really accurate with his throwing, and busy around the park as well. And for those guys to stand out in the losing side, like, it says a lot about them as well, because sometimes it's easy for a player to look good when your team is winning, but when your team is losing, if a player is standing out, they've got something I feel special about them. So those guys maybe putting their hands up for more involvement with the Springboks. Jantjies and Goosen, I felt that they didn't really give they were outshone certainly by their opposite numbers, and they didn't really give their team much direction either and much go forward. So just in terms of Munster then overall, as a Leinster fan, I was really happy to see this, because I truly believe that a decent Munster side and a Munster side on the up and in confidence is hugely important to the Irish setup. And the more of those players that we can see playing with confidence and are improving, and I think under Roundtree they are going to improve as the season goes on, the better it is then for the Irish setup. Great night for the players, great night for the province, and a great night for rugby.